If a weapon can attach either the angled grip or the vertical, which one do you choose? That's what I aim to explore in this video, and for that reason I limited my experiments to 15 different weapons, those that can attach either the vertical or the angled grip. This list includes 5 SMGs, 7 assault rifles, 2 battle rifles and a shotgun. And with that, over to the experiments, and we will be starting off with experiments on the angled grip. The purpose of the angled grip, of course, is to accelerate the transition between hipfire and ADS, so it increases the speed at which you can aim down sight. Now, before we get to measuring the ADS time, let's first test some of the confounding variables. For instance, does the type of sight you attach to your gun influence the aim down sight time in any way? And the answer to that question is no, it doesn't. What about the vertical grip? Does that influence the ADS time compared to having no grip at all? And again, the answer to that question is no. Following on from these tests, I'm going to use the exact same method, simply measuring the time it takes to aim down sights with and without the angled grip, to find out how much of a benefit the angled grip provides to each individual weapon. Let me show you a quick example of how I did this on the AR-33. The angled grip is on the left-hand side of the screen, and as you can see, it took 284 milliseconds to zoom in, while for the vertical grip on the right, it took 452 milliseconds. Zooming back out again takes 318 milliseconds, irrespective of which grip is attached. Now, I quickly want to mention a slight limitation on this method of analysis. I'm analyzing this footage only at 60 frames per second, and since an animation can sometimes start or finish right at the beginning of a frame or sometimes right at the end of a frame, I did see some variance in the results by plus or minus 1 frame usually, and at 60 frames per second this can mean a difference in results of up to 34 milliseconds. Furthermore, I assume that the ADS times are nice and round numbers, really, but since I'm stepping through the footage 1 frame at a time, which is 16.667 milliseconds at a time, we end up with these slightly wonky looking times of like 452 milliseconds, even though it probably isn't exactly that. So that's how I tested the angled grip. Now let's go over to the results. The ADS times for the 15 weapons I tested can be grouped into 4 different categories. The slowest weapon was Blackbeard's Mark 17 with an aim down sight time of 686 milliseconds without the angled grip and 418 with the angled grip. The next slowest gun is Thermite's 556XI with times of 535 milliseconds and 335. The next group is quite large and includes most of the assault rifles as well as the Saiga 12 shotgun, and the times here are 452 and 284 milliseconds. And finally we have the group with the fastest ADS times, which is mostly SMGs and Jackal's C7E, which I found really interesting. One of the hardest hitting assault rifles in the game also has the aim down sight time of an SMG. This makes this gun extremely powerful, and I wonder if this is something that's going to be patched in future. To me, it just doesn't make sense how a gun that is as strong as Thermite's 556XI should also have such an amazing mobility. Nevertheless, there it is, and the times for this group are 301 milliseconds and 184. So if we calculate the reduction in ADS time now, we get results in the range of 37.2% up to 39.1%. Now, keeping in mind the limitations on the granularity of my data I mentioned earlier, I would guess that the ADS time multiplier for the angled grip in the code is probably minus 40%. So all of the weapons receive the same relative benefit by attaching the angled grip, but of course the absolute benefit is larger for the slow weapons like the Mark 17 and the 556XI. Now this could be used as an argument for using the angled grip on the slower weapons since the benefit is the greatest, but at the same time, if you have weapons that are already fast to aim down sight, and you can speed that up by 40% on top of that, well, that represents a great argument for attaching the angled grip to the weapons with great mobility. And now, irrespective of which of these arguments appeals to you more, I think we can safely say at this stage that a 40% reduction in aim down sight time is quite valuable. This becomes even more relevant if you consider that quickscoping doesn't work in Rainbow Six Siege. Your gun only reaches its full accuracy once you are fully scoped in. As you can see here, if you fire your gun before you are fully scoped in, your gun will still suffer from a significant spread. The only downside to attaching the angled grip, at least with these 15 weapons, is that you cannot at the same time attach the vertical grip, which means that you sacrifice the advantage in recoil reduction that you could have instead. So the next question we need to answer is, how much recoil reduction does the vertical grip offer? Now, as before, let's first have a look at some potentially confounding variables. Can we confirm that the angled grip has no influence on recoil whatsoever? Easiest way to check is to burst fire at a wall once with the angled grip and once without and compare the resulting patterns. Now those patterns look very similar, and if I overlay a few lines going through the centers of the bullet concentrations, we can see that they match up very well. So yes, the patterns are of course randomized, so they're not exactly the same, but they are equivalent. The angled grip does not influence recoil. Confirmed. The vertical grip is meant to affect recoil, so it wouldn't be surprising to see a difference in the recoil pattern between the angled and vertical grip. But something else I wanted to check before getting into the results is whether or not there is a difference in the vertical grip's performance when it comes to automatic fire or single fire. So let's first take a look at how the